Welcome to Faith and Freedom. For the next few minutes, we hope to inform, inspire, and encourage you as we discuss legal victories and challenges to your fundamental freedom and religious liberties. Faith and Freedom comes to you from Liberty Counsel, a civil liberties education and legal defense organization. Join us now as Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel, explains the latest legal issues all across this country. In the courtrooms of America, Liberty Counsel is winning the battle for your constitutional freedom.
Religious liberty and counterfeit same-sex marriage cannot coexist in harmony. I am Matt Barber, Vice President of Liberty Counsel Action. Joining me again today in studio is Steve Crampton, Liberty Counsel's Vice President and General Counsel. Steve, the marriage decision out of the Supreme Court, Justice Kennedy, you've had a chance, I've had a chance to read his opinion in this case. It's chilling to me that Kennedy makes some blanket assertions about Christianity and about people who recognize the natural marriage as between a man and a woman. He makes some sweeping claims about animus and bigotry and hatred and so forth, while providing no real
coherent
equal protection. Coherent equal protection argument. No coherent argument whatsoever to actually defend the decision. And this is scary times. If Justice Kennedy ultimately in the next 2 or 3 years shoots down Section 2 of DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, which would open the floodgates for every state would be compelled at that point to recognize same-sex marriage. What does that spell for religious freedom?
Absolute disaster, in 2 words. As you said at the start of the show, they simply cannot coexist. Either you have true religious freedom and freedom of conscience, and really even freedom of speech. There's a reason the founders recognized religious freedom is the cornerstone of liberty. And you can't have both religious freedom and the recognition of same-sex marriage, really homosexual behavior kind of redefining our society and becoming the new orthodoxy. And we are right on the precipice, I'd say, after Justice Kennedy's disastrous opinion of that reality overtaking us all. Already, as we sit here today, in the wake of that decision, we've had calls in the heart of Mississippi, which passed the state marriage amendment by the greatest lopsided majority in America. A local county clerk has been contacted and asked to issue a certificate for same-sex couples. You have the introduction of a citizen initiative in the state of Ohio to overturn by citizen efforts the state marriage amendment there. You've got the Human Rights Campaign filing lawsuits in favorable jurisdictions. Basically, our nation's moral fabric is coming apart at the seams.
Yeah, marriage is under assault. Religious liberty is under assault. And, the left loves to throw out red herrings and say things like, how does my gay marriage affect your marriage?
Yes,
That's
sir.
not what we're talking about here, of course. It doesn't necessarily affect my marriage directly, personally. It affects the institution of marriage by undermining it and devaluing it and watering it down, certainly. But it does affect very directly people's ability to live out their life in accordance with their faith and their conscience.
Yes.
Think of states that already recognize counterfeit same-sex marriage, like Washington State, where Baronelli Stetzman, a woman who owns a flower shop there, is the Attorney General has filed charges against her for saying that she cannot provide bouquets for a so-called gay wedding for a regular customer of hers. But when it came time for her to provide, when he said, "Can you sponsor my gay marriage with these, your craft, your talent, your art form," and she said, "Well, no, I'm a follower of Jesus. I love Jesus. I love you, but I can't do that."
Right.
What happens if marriage becomes the law of the land? Can people in any setting say, "No, I recognize marriage as it's always been"?
Absolutely not. And the other side to it is there's an aggressive effort on behalf of the proponents of same-sex marriage to make sure that folks that are outspoken in their faith no longer get to sell their flowers freely. The wedding photographers are another favorite target. Yeah. But Christian mom and pop landlords, renting out a room in their own home saying when a same-sex couple applies, I'm sorry, but that violates our conscience, and the rules of our own home are going to be and have already found themselves targets of lawsuits and administrative proceedings to basically shut them out. They're really, I think, in a sense, they're drawing a bullseye around these folks, around us, if you will, and making sure that we are eliminated. They cannot peacefully coexist with that kind of religious freedom.
The goal is to marginalize and push to the fringe out of any ability to function in society,
Yes.
to make a living, to do anything, to push to the fringe, push into the churches, if you will, and put a large fence with razor wire around that
That's
church.
exactly right.
Christians and Christianity. Steve, you think of people say, well, there are anti-discrimination laws. Well, a baker who, if a homosexual man comes and says, hey, can you bake me a birthday cake? Chances are they're going to say, well, absolutely, I'm going to bake you a birthday cake.
You bet.
Bake my wedding cake. That calls in, then you have to lend some kind of affirmation
Yes.
to something that the
Yes.
Bible is unequivocal about, that is mortal sin. And we are not to take part in sin. We are not to be unequally yoked with those engaging in sin. Isn't that really what it boils down to?
That's exactly what it boils down to, not to endorse that kind of lifestyle and behavior. And the left is very quick to say, like you pointed out with that red herring argument about, well, how does it affect your marriage? As if to get the Trojan horse into the public square, we're not really impacting you at all. But once they're there, look at the rewriting of curriculum for our schools, for instance. Don't you dare try to teach your son that marriage really is one man, one woman only. And we've already seen that in states like Massachusetts and in California, where they're implementing these curricula. And then if you look across the border, like Canada, where they've had same-sex marriage recognized for 11 years now, even the banal writing of a letter to the editor has resulted in legal action against individuals. Preachers who write a letter to their congregation reiterating the doctrine of one man, one woman, orthodoxy in biblical belief, have been reprimanded and disciplined. So you see it playing out in all kinds of different arenas and in different circumstances. Don't think that you're going to be left alone with your Christian beliefs or whatever your beliefs might be when this is the new orthodoxy.
Great Britain, Tony Miano, a retired deputy sheriff, former chaplain with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, was arrested, quote, for using homophobic speech that could cause people anxiety, distress, alarm, or insult. Well, heaven forbid that somebody should be offended by truth and by somebody who's willing to speak truth. This gentleman was not just talking about homosexuality in a very loving Christian way. He was talking about all form of sin, including homosexual sin, which is sin, and so forth. He was hauled into jail for 7 hours, interrogated, asked questions like, would you aid a gay person who was in distress? He said, well, yeah, of course I would. They were trying to build a case against him based on his thoughts.
On thought alone.
Thought
Isn't
police.
that something? And by the way, he was reading directly out of Scripture itself. So at the end of the day, what you have is not this guy acting in some sort of angry, inappropriate manner, not his manner and his conduct, but his belief alone, and ultimately what Scripture itself says about marriage and about homosexuality. It is chilling, and while this took place in London, we're importing freely from overseas, so don't think that it won't cross the border and end up right here. Pointing up again that the two are just inherently incompatible. You can't have it.
Well, and
Both
as we mentioned yesterday, Heidi Feldblum, President Obama's appointment to the EEOC, a radical lesbian activist, Georgetown law professor who has advocated plural marriages, open communal kind of marriages, polyamory, polygamy, and so forth. This opens the floodgates, folks. It shuts down religious freedom, religious liberty, and the Judeo-Christian sexual ethic in the workplace, in the home, on the streets, anywhere. It marginalizes and pushes Christians within the walls of the sanctuary, and that is not what the United States Constitution stands for. Our enumerated First Amendment guaranteed constitutional rights are non-negotiable. Yet we are living in a culture now through the advent of this notion of same-sex marriage, living in a culture where newfangled gay rights are trumping your right to agree with God on sexual morality, and to even lead those who are on a pathway to destruction, living out a homosexual lifestyle. you will be prohibited from even sharing the truth of the gospel with them at scary times. It's not going to happen on our watch. Liberty Counsel is standing firm to defend your religious freedoms, to defend life, and to defend the Judeo-Christian sexual ethic, the natural family, and natural marriage. Go to lc.org to support Liberty Counsel in our very important mission.
You have been listening to Faith and Freedom with Liberty Counsel. We hope that we have motivated you to stand up for your faith, family, and freedom. We can accomplish a lot when we work together. Get informed and get involved today. Sign up for our free monthly newsletter, The Liberator. We will send it out to you free of charge. Stay informed with our Liberty Alert email updates. Just click on the website at www.lc.org or call us at 1-800-671-1776. Tune in next time to learn more about your rights right here on Faith and Freedom.